In this video, we are going to bring you a top list with the best and most captivating mafia and gangster movies, pure action and excellent performances. The stories of organized crime have served as inspiration for countless feature films, and it's that a good part of the mafia movies are based on real events, and those that aren't have been inspired by some of the most popular criminals. If you are a fan of Scorsese, Robert De Niro or Al Pacino, get ready because this will be very present in this ranking. Let's begin. Starting our list at number 15, we have Donnie Brasco. Joseph Pistone is an FBI agent who has to infiltrate the New York Mafia for a few years in order to arrest their capos, and who ends up gaining the trust of a veteran gunfighter who becomes his best friend. Pistone will thus be torn between what he feels for the law and the fascination caused by the group's violent methods. Joseph Pistone's own memoirs served as the basis for Paul Atencio to write the script for Donnie Brasco. Next up at number 14, The Iceman. Richard Kuklinski is a seemingly ordinary man who goes into business. He has a very familiar character. He's a perfect husband and an excellent father. But appearances are deceiving, and Kuklinski is not who he seems to be. In his parallel life, he is a sadistic murderer who freezes the organs of his victims and organizes false leads for the police. His nature is always violent, but his attitude and indifference towards everything he does allows him to lead a normal life, in which he manages to deceive his family and neighbors. Kuklinski murdered more than 100 people without ever feeling sorry, except if it harmed his family in some way.
Poor sons of bitches thinking their dad's a decent guy.
And at number 13, The Drug King. Set in South Korea during the 70s, it tells the story of a small-time drug dealer who ends up becoming one of the most important capos in his country. In the mid-1970s, Lee Do-sam, a smiling unemployed man, enters the bottom rung to work for a mafia of Korean and Japanese smugglers. He is an ambitious and cunning person. A series of setbacks, torture and prison in between push him to enter the world of drug trafficking. It's a film of the rise and fall of a criminal. He is a mobster with a confusing nationalist ideology that spreads arranged by a corrupt government. He is a gangster who, on his way up, receives more blows and humiliation than he returns, but who does not lose his smile. At number 12, we have The Untouchables. Chicago in the 20s, prohibition does not manage to put an end to drinking, but it does make crime skyrocket and organized gangs appear on a national scale. Al Capone imposes his law in the city, and it seems that nobody can stop him. Elliot Ness tries unsuccessfully until veteran cop Malone convinces him to change tactics, create a special unit, The Untouchables, and operate in a different way. The Untouchables is a wonderful movie directed by Brian D. Palmer. At number 11, we have Once Upon a Time in America. This is another classic mob movie that you cannot miss. It tells the story of David Noodles Aronson, a young man of Hebrew origin who meets another Jewish boy, Max Berkowitz, in 1920 in Manhattan, where they both live. Along with other neighborhood friends, they set up a criminal gang, and because of an incident related to it, Noodles enters prison for 12 years. At that time, Max continues with the band that becomes one of the most important during dry law. But when Noodles is released from prison, fate deals another blow, cutting his life short again. A wonderful work by Sergio Leone. Moving on to number 10, The Irishman. It is a feature film based on the real events narrated in the homonymous book written by Charles Brand. It introduces us to Frank Sheeran, a mob thug who rubbed shoulders with some of the most prominent figures of 20th century America, and recounts his involvement in the death of popular trade unionist Jimmy Hoffa. Next up at number 9, The Outsider. Japan at the end of World War II. Nick Lowell, played by Jared Leto, is an American soldier who is imprisoned as a prisoner of war. Thanks to his cellmate, Nick will be able to be rescued and get out of jail. But things are not so easy, since his partner belongs to the Yakuza. His release will mean a debt with the Japanese mafia, which the soldier will decide to settle, earning the respect of his benefactor and entering that dangerous terrain. If you like top movies, don't forget to subscribe and activate the bell to see more videos like this. Number 8. Eastern Promises. Anna is a midwife who works in a London hospital. Affected by the death after childbirth of an unknown patient who was admitted with signs of violence, she decides to investigate its origin. His only help is a diary belonging to the deceased, in which he will discover that the girl comes from the Kitrova family. There is a fearsome Russian mob that will want to get hold of the diary that is full of evidence. The family will have to get rid of everything that is a possible danger and uncover a network of murderers to the police, including Anna. At number 7. Carlito's Way. Carlito Brigante has been in prison for 5 years for drug trafficking. Once released, he wants to leave that world and not return to prison for the rest of his life. To restructure everything he left behind, Carlito sets up a nightclub and tries to get back together with his old partner. However, and although he wants to get away from the world of drugs, it will not be easy for Carlitos, since in his club there is nothing but criminals and drug traffickers. Moving on to number 6. Kill the Irishman. It is a film based on the life of gangster Danny Green, who in the 1970s became a legend for both the mob and the people of Cleveland. The director and screenwriter Jonathan Hensley directs the film, accompanied by an important cast with Christopher Walken, Val Kilmer, and Ray Stevenson. Based on a true story, Danny Green is a gangster of Irish origin who starred in the darkest episodes of the city of Cleveland in the 70s. His tendency to get into all kinds of troubles makes him a troublesome and uncomfortable figure in the mafia world. There are many who would like to eliminate it, but it will not be easy for them. And at number 5, The Departed. It is a 2006 film directed by Martin Scorsese and starring Leonardo DiCaprio, Matt Damon, and Jack Nicholson. It tells the story of the Irish mob in Massachusetts from 3 interesting perspectives: the mobster, the dirty cop, and the honest cop. The Massachusetts Police Department will take on Boston's fearsome organized crime gang led by the powerful Frank Costello. While one of the cops, Billy Costigan, seeks to gain Costello's trust in order to capture him, Colin Sullivan is another cop infiltrated by Costello himself. Moving on to number 4. American Gangster. A feature film about the mob in the Harlem neighborhood of New York. In the late 1970s, the neighborhood is dominated by Ellsworth Bumpy Johnson, who disputed the territory with the Italian mob. After his death, Frank Lucas, Johnson's driver and confidant, is the one who stays in front of the businesses in the neighborhood. Lucas stands out for his intelligence, and during the Vietnam War, he uses his contacts in the US Army to build an empire thanks to drug trafficking. He has bought a good part of the police department, but Agent Richie Roberts does not accept the money from the mafia and will track him down with the aim of putting him behind bars. Moving on to number 3. The Godfather Saga. The saga is based on the homonymous novel by Mario Puzo, which tells the story of Don Vito Corleone, the godfather of one of the 5 families of the Italian mafia in New York. We discover how he managed to build his career to power, meet his 4 children, and see how his descendants will manage his legacy. Moving on to number 2, we have Goodfellas. If we put together Scorsese, De Niro, Ray Liotta, and Joe Pesci, we will most likely have a work of art. The year is 1955. Henry Hill, a high school student, lives idealizing the mobsters who operate in his neighborhood near New York City. His dream is to become one of them. That's why, when Paul Cicero begins to give him assignments, he strives to fulfill them to the letter and begins to live with Jimmy Conway and Tommy DeVito, who are the other members of the band. As time passes, Henry begins to do more elaborate jobs and commit crimes. It doesn't take long for him to realize his ability, and he begins to consider moving up the hierarchy within the organization, even if it means having to get someone else out of the way. Goodfellas is a film that, despite being violent, is considered a classic of cinema. Moving on to number 1, we have Scarface. The story is basically about a Cuban who receives political asylum in the United States. This Cuban is called Tony Montana, and he arrives in the United States without a single penny. As time goes by, he makes contacts that help him get easy money in ways that are not so legal, one could say. After collaborating in a homicide, he goes out to the streets, becoming a dishwasher at a fast food stall on the street. But tired of his bad life in the United States, with the help of his great friend Manny, he gets a bigger job that will allow them to earn their living. Respect of many of the greats of the mafia and drug business. For you, what is the best mafia and gangster movie? We read you in our comments. Here we leave you more videos like this.